Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I hope that you are ready to make your week absolutely amazing. I'm so glad that all of you are joining me on today. Super excited for us to have another Mindful Monday where we're going to be together, getting your intentions right, starting off the week right. If you are joining on Facebook, why not go ahead and share this with a friend, tag someone, tell them to come on in and start their week off the right way. If you're joining on YouTube, make sure you share this with someone. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. All right, let's just jump right into it here in the break room. Again, this is Mindful Mondays, and we are going to start off with setting our intention for the week. So today we're going to talk about no more audibles. And so I want us to really be focused on this week with following the instructions that we've been given from God to the T. When we follow his instructions, it gives us great outcomes. And what I want to do is encourage you with a few little stories that shows you what happens when we make decisions not to follow the instructions that God gives us and we call an audible. Okay, so for those of you that are not necessarily sports fanatics like me, I'm not going to assume that you know what an audible is. And we're not talking about something that you just hear. When you are playing sports, particularly football, one of the things that they have are pre plays that are set up. And so one of the things that your coach is going to do is in practice with your other teammates. Your coach is going to make sure that you understand what plays you should run in an upcoming game, because your main coach, along with specialty coaches along the way, have studied your opponent and they know the strengths of your opponent, the weaknesses of your opponent. But one thing that your coach also knows, especially if you got a good coach, if you play athletics, they also understand the strengths and the weaknesses of you as a player and your team. And so one of the things about a good coach is that they're going to study not just your opponent, but they also are going to study you. And one of the things that we always say when we talk on Mindful Mondays is that one of the things that we want to do is act on our decisions and not just our instincts. I'll say that again. We want to act on our decisions and not just instincts. And so when you are calling audibles, sometimes those are necessary, but oftentimes if you run your plays, if you run your routes effectively that the coaches are giving you, not just in practice, but when you actually are playing the game, they're sitting in a skybox, particularly in football, sometimes in basketball as well, and they're able to see things from a higher position than you to understand, okay, what is the opposing team doing on the other side, and what should you be doing to make shifts and changes in your game, in your plays, so that you have the best probability to win. Well, one of the things that I like about us is when we serve the Lord Jesus Christ, when we have God in our lives, he looks from what I call a play box in heaven. And not only has he studied our opponent, but he has defeated our opponent several times. And so he knows what plays to call. He knows what moves that we should make. He knows the best strategy for us. And so it's really important that we don't get on the field, and this is talking about audibles, of life and try to just wing it. That's not something that we need to do. When we know that we have God in our lives, we don't have to wing anything, and we don't have to call audibles and make quick decisions and changes in a hurry, because the way that God is so strategic, not only has he studied our opponent and knows our opponent's strengths and weaknesses and defeated our opponent several times, he also knows our strengths and weaknesses, and he can give us the plays well in advance so that we not sometimes win, but we always win. And when we call audibles in our own lives and do not consult the Lord before we move into a day, before we move into the week, we run the risk of losing every time or having to constantly adjust our game because we're not listening to the coach that's in our ear, that's in the skybox, that's looking and knows what's going on. And so I want to encourage you to set your intention this week about consulting God concerning the plans for your life and following those instructions. Okay, you may not believe me. You may need some convincing. So let me go ahead and go to scripture, which is what we do on Mindful Mondays all the time, to encourage you that you should not be calling audibles in your life. I'll give you the first story. First story is going to be in 1 Samuel, the 15th chapter. And so when we look at 1 Samuel 15, we've got the wonderful story of Samuel and Saul. Okay. And so for those of you that may not be as familiar with this story in 1 Samuel 15, what Saul was the king of Israel. He was appointed by God, and he was someone that could have been used mightily. A lot of people that are familiar with Saul always see him in a negative light, but Saul is someone that really could have been used, but he did not follow instructions. He always liked to call audibles all the time. There was a time prior to 1 Samuel 15 when Samuel told Saul to go someplace and you're going to wait on me and give sacrifices. And by the time I get there, you're going to get the victory. Saul got tired of waiting, and because he thought Samuel wasn't going to keep his word, he went ahead and made sacrifices himself. And guess what? He wasn't as successful, and he lost the victory because he constantly called audibles. Well, again, we're in 1 Samuel 15, and one of the things that we see here is the last time that Saul called an audible, and it really caused him not only to lose, but to lose his positioning and to lose his seat. Let me give you the Yolanda Cliff Notes version of this story. And so Samuel, who was a prophet of God that knew the word of the Lord, had been hearing the Lord for a long time, told Saul that he was going to go and smite the Amalekites. And it says in verse 3, and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, slay both men and women and infants and suckling and ox and sheep and camel and ass. Now that may sound very, very harsh. You may be thinking, oh my God, did the God of the universe basically tell them to kill everything, kids, children? Yes, he told them anything associated with the Amalekites, I want you to utterly destroy them. And so Saul had these instructions from Samuel. And so when you read on in that story, like I told you, Saul was one that was always in the mood of calling an audible. So what did Saul do? It says in verse 7 that he smote the Amalekites, and that he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive. Okay, I'm really confused because these instructions that he got said kill everything. But he took the king alive, and he utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. But verse 9, but Saul and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep and of the oxen and of the fatlings and of the lambs and all that was good, they decided not to destroy. So let's pause here. God had already given Saul, instructions through Samuel that he was to utterly destroy everything. But Saul took it upon himself to call an audible and decided, you know what? I'm going to take this king alive. And he looked around and saw some things and determined himself that, you know what? I think these things are good. So I'm going to save it. Let's pause there. How many times in your life have you seen something that you think is quote unquote good, and you decided that you wanted to proceed anyway, even though God may have been giving you instructions to do something totally different? Let's go ahead and hit home. God may not be telling you to go out there and utterly kill a whole nation, but he may be telling you that job that you think is good, I want you to walk away from that job offer. Ooh, you guys, sometimes got to do that. Maybe it's a relationship that you think is good and you're trying to save it, you're trying to spare it, and you're like, you know what? I don't think I want to walk away from that. I think that I want to keep it because it's good. It feels good. It seems right. We have a connection. But God has told you that's not it. I need you to leave it alone. Let me tell you one good thing that you need to remember, that the good thing is not always the God thing. I will tell you that again, that the good thing is not always the God thing. You know what? I'm going to say it one more time. The good thing is not always the God thing. You have to know the difference between what is seemingly good in your eyes and what really is the God thing. And again, if you really trust your coach, if you really trust what God is saying, you will know that even though it seems so good to you, even though it makes sense to you, in this story, it made sense seemingly from the natural eye for Saul to want to keep the good of the oxen and to keep the calves and to keep all of those things, because again, him and his soldiers could have eaten that, they would have had some spoils. But even though it seemingly was good in the natural mind, it necessarily wasn't the God thing. When you start your week this week, what are you trying to hang on to? What audibles are you calling forth in your life that are opposite of the instructions that God is giving you, and you think it's okay because it's good? Maybe it's, I'm going to take 2 extra hours to sleep and God is telling you to get up and do some work. Maybe it's, I'm going to get up and do some work and God is telling you to take the extra 2 hours to sleep. You know, there is strategy in rest. I want you to know that you got to set your intentions this week to not call audibles in your own life. Do you trust that God is a good coach? Do you trust and have faith and believe that whatever instructions he's giving you, that even though it may not make sense to you in the moment, it is working for a far greater good in your life? And let me tell you why this was so detrimental for Saul. Saul not only disobeyed the word of the Lord and caused himself and his whole household to lose their inheritance as part of the rulers of Israel, but what it did is further on, if you continue to read the Bible, it says that there was this young woman by the name of Esther, and that when Esther got into a position of power, she had to deal with a young man by the name of Haman, who was a descendant of Agag, who are of the Amalekites. Agag got away, and as a result of Agag getting away, because Saul refused to kill him, someone later on in the biological or genealogical line of the Israelites had to deal with someone that came from Agag. And Haman tried to utterly destroy Israel. So again, what you refuse to deal with, and when you call audibles in your own life, you create issues not just for yourself, but for those that are coming behind you. How many things could maybe you have avoided in your life, or can avoid in your life, or others can avoid in their lives if you would just follow the playbook? Okay, I'm going to say it again. Follow the playbook. So that's your intention. It's really simple. The Bible says in the New Testament, the eyes have not seen, ears have not heard, neither has it entered into the heart of men, the things that God has in store for them that love him. This is the part that I love, because people stop there. But it has been revealed by the Spirit. I believe that God calls us friend. And when we get in a position to really hear him, he wants to give us the playbook to our lives. And all we have to do is follow the plays, go step by step, instruction by instruction, and be obedient. The other thing it says in 1 Samuel 15, it goes into, excuse me, verse 24. And verse 23, excuse me. And this is where it says rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. I want to tell you, when you call a lot of audibles in your own life, you move into a state of rebellion. And when you move into rebellion, you're operating outside of the will, the purposes, and the plans of God. And you may be frustrated and you may have things not working for you, not because God doesn't want them to work, but because you refuse to listen to his instructions. So again, I want you to say it with me. No more audibles. Again, no more audibles. What you're going to do this week and every week, but we really are going to purpose in our heart this week, is that we're going to follow the plans and the instructions of the Lord. And when you follow his plans and his instructions, I'm telling you, you are going to prosper and you are going to have good success. All right. So we're going to set our weekly intention and then we're going to get out of here. So this is our intention for this week. Our intention is that I will consult God about the plans for my life and follow the instructions he gives, even if it does not make sense. You know why? Because I trust that he sees what I do not. I'm going to say it again. We're going to consult God about the plans he has for our lives, and we're going to follow the instructions that he gives, even if it does not make sense. You know why? Because we trust that he sees what we do not. All right. So I want you to be mindful. I want you to be thoughtful. And remember, just because it seems good doesn't align with the instructions that God gave you. Remember, the good thing is not always the God thing. And you need discernment to know what God is saying. And when he tells you something, follow it to the T. I just feel this on me very heavy right now, right before we're about to get off. I want to tell some of you and encourage you that some of you are frustrated. Some of you are very frustrated about where you're at in life and how things are going. But I even hear now in my spirit to go back to the last set of instructions that you received from God. I really want you all to hear me. Whatever God told you to do, that last set of instructions, if you have not followed that, whether that is to complete a fast, whether that is to break away from a connection or a relationship, and it doesn't have to be romantic. Sometimes God separates things that are friendships. I mean, Abraham and Lot had to go two separate ways at some point. And so did some Paul and Barnabas. I want you to go back and think about what were the last set of instructions that God gave you. And did you follow those completely? Or maybe God gave you a word, and because you were so moved in fear and because you were so paralyzed, maybe by a positive outcome, not even a negative outcome, that you did not do whatever God instructed you to do last. I'm telling you, your victory is in your last set of instructions and you following that to the T. All right, so I'm super excited to be with you all again. Remember to go ahead and share this with a friend. If you're following on Facebook, follow the break room on Facebook. I'm super excited. That's a space for us to just unwind, talk, answer any questions, get motivation for your week, whether it's from an HR standpoint or just inspiration. If you're watching this on YouTube or on a replay, make sure you hit that like button, share it with a friend, and also subscribe to the page. I'm super excited to be with you all again, and I hope that you have a beautiful and a fantabulous week. All right, let's go ahead and follow the plays of the Lord. And remember, no more audibles. You all take care. Make the day absolutely amazing. All right, talk to you soon. Bye.